Today, I'm going to tell you a story. It's not a story I wrote, but it's a story that I'm illustrating, and I have permission from the author to read you a part of it. Isn't that cool? So, this is one of the illustrations, and I don't have a working title. I do have a working title. I don't have a title, but the working title is Rosella. I think it's just Rosella, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, so the author, I wrote an email to the author and I said, is it possible that I could read a few passages so that I can show how I use somebody else's words in order to illustrate a story? Okay? His name, by the way, is John Fleming. That's the name of the author. And John told me I could do that. So this is a work in progress. And John Fleming is the author of the story you're about to hear. So it's a little bit different on Papa Paints today. You'll see how I painted this, but I'm not really describing how I painted it. I'm reading John's words, okay? So you'll see how I painted this whole thing and you'll hear me read John's words. And let's do that right now. This should be fun. Here we go. All right, well, here we go. I just went back to my email and John Fleming wrote me and said that the title is The Summer of Viking and the Alligator Whisperer. So here we go. While I'm reading this, you can watch the time lapse of how I illustrated one of the pages in his book. The scent of river water and sun-warmed wood filled Rosella's senses as she sat on the old dock, her bare feet hovering just above the rippling surface. Viking, her loyal Samoyed, lay beside her, his thick white fur catching the light as he panted lazily. The summer air was heavy, thick with the hum of cicadas, and somewhere in the distance a boat engine rumbled before fading into the vast stretch of cypress and sky. Ocala was nothing like Brooklyn. Back home, the streets were lined with brownstones and busy people with somewhere to be. Here, time felt slower, softer, like the Spanish moss swaying in the trees. It had been a strange adjustment at first, but Viking helped. He went everywhere with her, his presence a steady, comforting thread in this unfamiliar place. This dock had become their sanctuary, a place where she could sit and watch the world pass, where she could breathe in the wildness of summer and pretend she belonged here, if only for a little while. She was tracing lazy patterns in the water with her fingers when she noticed movement. A boy. At first, all she saw was a flash of sun-bronzed skin and dark hair before he vanished beneath the water. She blinked. A few seconds later, he surfaced, grinning like he owned the river. Rosella sat up straighter, alarm prickling at the back of her neck. "Hey, there are gators in there!" The boy only laughed, sending ripples across the water. Then, with a mischievous glint in his eye, he disappeared beneath the surface again. Rosella huffed. "You're insane," she muttered, mostly to Viking, who simply blinked at her. When the boy surfaced again, she cupped her hands around her mouth. "I said there are gators in there!" Still, he just smiled, tilting his head like he didn't understand. He floated on his back for a moment, arms stretched, eyes half closed against the golden sky. Then, just as she thought he might ignore her completely, he swam closer. Rosella tensed slightly, though she wasn't sure why. There was something untamed about him, like the river itself. Finally, he stopped a few feet from the dock, treading water effortlessly. "You're not from around here," he said, amusement lacing his voice. She raised an eyebrow. "No kidding." He smirked. "You talk funny." Rosella scoffed. "I talk fine." He shrugged. "If you say so." Viking lifted his head then, ears perking up. The boy noticed and grinned. "What's his name?" "Viking." "Good name. Loyal dogs, Samoyeds." Rosella narrowed her eyes. "How do you know that?" He laughed again, then tilted his head playfully. "Same way I know the gators won't bother me." She crossed her arms. "Which is?" He grinned. "I'm an alligator whisperer." Rosella rolled her eyes. "There is no such thing," she said. He leaned on the dock's edge, smirking up at her. "Why not? Don't you talk to your dog? Doesn't he understand you?" She hesitated, glancing at Viking, who blinked at her with wise, knowing eyes. Of course she talked to Viking, and of course he understood her. At least she liked to think so. She sighed, shaking her head. "Have you always been this obstinate?" The boy grinned. "Yep. Name's Sebastian, by the way." "Rosella." "Well, Rosella from Brooklyn, I guess we're officially friends now." She snorted. "Is that how this works?" Sebastian lifted his shoulders in an exaggerated shrug. "Sure, you're sitting on my dock, aren't you?" She smirked. "Your dock?" "Yep, yours too now, I guess." Rosella looked out at the water, then back at Sebastian's mischievous grin. This summer had been full of surprises, moving to a place so different from home, finding solace in Viking, discovering quiet moments on this dock, and now this boy who talked to alligators like it was the most natural thing in the world. She wasn't sure what the rest of the summer would bring, but for the first time, she felt like she might not mind finding out. What'd you think? I will let John Fleming have a copy of this video so he can read what you have to say about his words. I think it's a wonderful story for young adults, by the way. So, that's pretty cool. All right, well, thank you for watching. I know it was a time lapse and not the normal thing I do, but that was fun. That was fun. Thank you, John, for allowing me to read some of your words. And for the rest of you, thank you for watching. And thank you so much for the kind things you say. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.